Hi, folks. Steve Urban here, founder and CEO at Riderflex. We hope you enjoy today's podcast. And as a reminder, please subscribe to the Riderflex show for updates on new episodes. And by the way, if you haven't already, check out the book we recently launched, The Riderflex Guide, Inspiring and Hiring, available for purchase on Amazon. And now, a quick word from our sponsor.
Try the #1 marketing platform for small business. Everything you need from design to marketing to CRM. Learn more at marketing360.com. Marketing 360. Fuel your brand.
Todd Lancaster on the Riderflex podcast. Hello, Todd. How are you, sir?
It's fine, Steve. How you doing today?
Doing fine. How do you stay in such good shape, man? You look good. You look like you should be out in Hollywood doing one of those roles, that the middle-aged guys do. I mean, what's your secret, Todd?
I knew you were going to get personal. I didn't think you'd get that personal. That's like make me blush like in the first 3 seconds.
You look at you. What do you work out every day? You eat right or what?
I do Orange Theory about 3 to 4 times a week, and then I'm with a riding group. We ride for it's a nonprofit I'm a part of, and we ride. Well, they ride every single day, but I'll try to get 3 to 4 days of riding in every week too.
Very good. How many miles? What's a ride for you? Is that 10 miles, 20 miles, 30 miles?
About an hour and a half. If I'm riding with the group, we'll make sure we don't drop anybody. So it'll be about 23, 24 miles. If I ride by myself, I'll just ride straight through anywhere from 30 to 40 miles.
Any like other like weights, exercise? You want to do like yoga class? What else you got?
Yeah. Well, Orange Theory is a high intensity.
Oh.
What's nice about that is, I've got a monthly membership. So whenever I travel someplace, I can go to Orange Theory. I went to one in Germany.
Really?
One in Germany is funny because at the very end of every exercise, they'll do a countdown, 3, 2, 1. So everything was in German except the very end of the exercise. Then all of a sudden you'd hear this 3, 2, 1. Like, well, you've got German words for 3, 2, 1 too. And so it's just weird that
wow.
English was 3, 2, 1.
That's pretty good. And how about your diet? Now, are you pretty strict or you're where are you? Like, tell me what you do. I'm just curious because let's see, are you my age? You're probably my age, right? Or you how old?
56.
Oh, so you graduated 85 high school?
Yeah.
Oh, we're the same age. Okay. So
I look a day over 80, do it.
You look great, man. Tell me about the diet. What about the food, the drinks? What are you doing there?
I don't really stick to anything specifically. I eat healthy. I cook most of my food. One thing I have to make sure I've got no sweets in my house. Went down to my parents' house in Santa Fe over the weekend, and my dad loves Oreos. And so there's this new Oreo out. It's a toffee-filled Oreo. And I probably went through 6 of those within the first 30 seconds of sitting down. So I make sure that the only food I have in my house is healthy, so I don't have to worry about it too much. But other than that, what I'll try to do 3 days a week, usually Tuesday through Thursday, during the day, I'll just do a bone broth diet. It's really good for your skin. It's filling. It's kind of like just drinking a warm cup of coffee every once in a while. And so it really, like I said, it helps with bones, helps with the complexion, but also it just kind of takes some of the calories out during the day. And during those days, Tuesdays and Thursdays, no drinking either. So.
Wow. Okay. All right. Well, that's okay. So bone broth, like even for dinner, like, so no, like, ooh, that's tough. Ooh, man.
Well, what I do is I'll mix half bone broth and half beef broth, and then I'll put a whole bunch of lime juice in it. Coriander, anise, cinnamon sticks, nutmeg, chop some onions up into it, and some ginger, and then I boil it for a while, strain all that stuff out. It's amazing. I mean, when I first started doing it, I thought it would be difficult to maintain, but it really isn't. It's high protein, so it keeps the protein going. The first day I'll feel a little hungry, and after that, it's easy going.
How about that? I have not cut out bread completely, so I'm not 100% bread cut guy, but I have really watched the bread intake the last 6 months or so. And I thought that would be harder than it was. Like, it actually wasn't that hard. Like, my wife she'll make a cheeseburger, so to speak, but it'll be lettuce wrapped or whatever. And it's fine. Like, I'm like, it's not that hard.
Yeah. Well, like those little adjustments, like you just said, like putting lettuce over it still gives you that same feeling a little bit, like it's still a sandwich. That's meat.
I really, at the age of 56, the nasty, bad for you coffee creamer, I really try to stay away from that. I try to watch my bread intake, and I try to do more red wine than beer now if I can. Now, if I'm at the pub with the guys, so to speak, and everybody's drinking beer, I'm not gonna, like, there's a table of 5 guys sitting around with a beer, I'm not gonna order wine because I'm afraid they might beat me up or something. But I'm trying to I'm trying to do more red wine instead of beer. That helps too.
Yeah, I love red wine. That's my choice as well.
That's good. Good for you, man. So tell me about your parents, by the way. So they live in Santa Fe.
Yeah.
Give me a little history about your mom and dad and any siblings, if you don't mind.
Yeah, so one is our family goes back about 4 generations here up in Idaho Springs, Evergreen area.
Okay.
So kind of Bergen Park section.
Wow.
Part of my family homesteaded that.
Really?
Another part of my family was down here. My grandfather's name is on CSU somewhere for helping design one of the buildings. So we always say we got a smart side of the family and a dumb side of the family.
Now, what was that? So Lancaster, what is that? What was that? What's the heritage there?
English.
Okay.
Yeah, we did a 23andMe not long ago. It's some of the most embarrassing results I think I've ever seen.
Yeah, from grandfathers that had other kids that nobody knew about.
No. My family's been here in the United States for over 200 years. We're on both sides of the family. We're sons and daughters of the American Revolution.
Okay.
Our ancestors participated in the revolution.
Wow.
Yeah. Our 23andMe, we got it back. I was like 99% Northern Ireland, Northern England, Scotland and Wales. Okay. And so like we've been marrying exactly. And I'm like, does that make us one of the most racist people around, or is it just chance? I mean, how do you do that over 200 years?
Wow, 4 generations. So what year would that be? The first family got to Colorado. When would that be roughly?
I don't know that exactly. Is when we up in mountains up in Evergreen area.
Gold miners.
Gold diggers.
Gold diggers. What? Yeah. Okay. Wow.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were talking about Idaho Springs, the name of the football team.
No, I was talking about. I'm talking. No, for 4 generations, that had to be the reason they came here. Had to be.
Some is ranching. So over in the Evergreen area, that would be ranching, homesteading, working on the ranches. And then that's why we said we've got a dumb side and a smart side of the family, in the sense that we had lots of engineers down in the Denver area. Get to work on the buildings at CSU, work in the Capitol building. Our family helped work in the Capitol building, and we weren't the designers or anything by any means. And then we had a great relative up in the Clear Creek County area blow himself up with dynamite. And we were always like, how did that happen? They said, well, he was thawing out dynamite. And we were always like, well, doesn't it self-thaw?
I didn't know dynamite could freeze, actually. So that's new for me. I didn't know that.
So it was just a few years ago, a really good friend of mine, Mary Jane Lovely, in conjunction with Dana Crawford from Crawford Hotel, Mary Jane bought the Argo Gold Mill up in Idaho Springs, that big red building.
Okay.
And we used to in high school go in there. It wasn't a museum back then. We'd break in there and drink and make out and just do things that kids do. So when she bought it, it's been a museum for a long time. She asked me if I wanted to do a tour. I said, sure. And so we did a tour of the mine again, just for old time's sake. And while she was talking to the curator, I noticed this tin box. The only thing that caught my attention was this tin box. And it had all these cylindrical holes in it. And so I went to the curator. I said, what is this? He goes, well, this is how you thaw out dynamite. I'm like, wait a minute.
Wow.
Explain this to me.
Yeah.
And when dynamite freezes, it loses its explosive power. And so the people responsible back then to keep the dynamite, sometimes they had to put it under their jackets and sleep with it to keep it from freezing or to thaw it out.
I did not know that. Wow.
And the beds are being heated by coals and fire. So every once in a while, those two things didn't mix.
Holy shit.
So what they've got is this tin box that you slide the dynamite into the cylinders, and then you pour hot water in from the top. So it allows the dynamite to thaw completely away from flame and everything else.
Interesting. That is fascinating. Did not know. I love learning about stuff like that. Wow. Pretty cool. Okay. That is wild. So you grew up there then. What'd your dad do? Was your dad an engineer? What did he do?
He was an engineer. Yeah. I worked for, back then, Martin Marietta. He worked on Skylab and then eventually the space station, the space shuttle, thermodynamics engineer. So.
All right. All right. Any siblings?
Yeah, unfortunately, both dead. So my younger brother died by a mountain lion attack up in Idaho Springs.
What was? Are you kidding me? Okay, now that there's only been like one death from a mountain lion in the last 25 years. Was that him?
1994. Yeah, the day the first Gulf War started. He was out. He was a senior in high school, and up there in Idaho Springs at the old high schools, we had paths we could run. During school, if we had an hour off or something, we were allowed to go run these paths. So it was in the middle of the day. He went off to go for a run, and just never came back. It took us 3 days to find. We didn't know what happened. He just disappeared. So we assumed he'd been kidnapped or ran away or something. Then 3 days later, we found his body literally within a quarter mile of school.
Man, that is so terrible, Todd. I didn't know that. So, right now, am I right about that? I mean, I think if I've heard right, like whatever it is, I don't know the exact timeline, but something like the last 20 or 30 years, even though there's been several attacks, there's only been one death, I think, right? I mean,
sure, I'm pretty sure it says death. And prior to that, I don't think there'd been a death like 100 years. And they said that if the Gulf War had not started that day, that would have been the #1 story in the nation. Because it was so unusual.
Yes, so unusual. Yeah, people that aren't from here, they come up from Florida or whatever, and they think like, oh, people are killed like all the time. Like, actually, no, that rarely happens. Holy cow! Can I ask a couple of? I don't want to do a whole podcast on that, although that could be an interesting episode. So 3 days, and then they had search parties out or whatever. Do you remember? Were you up there with the search party? Do you remember any of that?
I was actually finishing up instructor pilot training down in San Antonio. And so the first day or so, we had no reason to believe foul play or runaway or anything, so we thought it was a kidnapping.
Mm-hmm.
So I did not come home. And then finally, when there was no word after the first day, a guy hopped in a plane and came home. And literally, I just arrived in Idaho Springs, started joining a search party, and that's when they found his body above high school. Yeah.
Wow, that's terrible. I will real quick, and we'll get off of this topic. I go to the mountains all the time. So I live in Johnstown, Loveland, and I do a ton of solo camping. For me, it's therapeutic, if you will. That's my thing. Now that my kids are gone and we're empty nesters, and if I ever need some time away from the wifey, that's my thing, right? Like I probably last summer, I shit you not, I probably did 10 to 15 solo camping trips, either in Wyoming or Northern Colorado. And I usually go as far remote as I can go to get away from people. And I do not fuck around when it comes to protection. Like when I'm out there by myself, I am always armed in some way, whether I have a pistol on me or a knife or bear spray or something. And some of my friends are like, oh, you're being overly cautious, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, listen, man, I do this by myself, and I'm 56 years old. Like when you're with a group, that's different. When you're by yourself and you're out wandering around, it's good to be careful.
Yeah, for sure. I do a lot of solo backpacking too. I haven't lately because my knees got kind of bad, but once I get those fixed, I'll be good back up. I'm with you. What's interesting though is never once I've seen signs of mountain lions.
Right.
Seen one in the wild.
Never seen one. I've lived here for 18 years. You've lived here your whole life. I've never seen one. Now they always say they see you all the time.
Yeah. Well, one thing I do want to mention is, I don't know if you knew this, but the bike path that goes all the way, the Plains to Peaks bike path.
Yeah.
Once it hits Clear Creek County, right there where I-70 and I-6 come together, the Two Bears bar used to be Kermit's.
Yeah.
That's the start of the Scott Lancaster Memorial Bike Path. And so it goes through, and right there at the Twin Tunnels on the Idaho Springs side, there's an old wooden bridge there that you'll see every once in a while going by, and that's his memorial bridge. So that trail that goes all the way through.
Okay.
Trail. We do a ride there.
All right.
Helping the trail back up this year. We're going to do another memorial ride for him.
I appreciate you sharing that. Tell me about your other sibling.
So Brett, my older brother, he died just a few years ago. He died of a massive heart attack. We have zero history of heart disease. My grandmother lived, I think, to be 105, and my grandparents, my dad's side, lived to be like 99 or something. So zero history of heart disease. I used to travel a lot for work, and he did too. And so he was just south of Boston at home, and I was hopping on a plane from DC back to Colorado, and we were chatting and saying, hey, we're going to hook up in San Francisco a week or two. We're going to be in the same place. Hopped on the plane Sunday morning. By the time I got back in Denver, I had a message from my dad saying, your brother's dead. I thought he was joking at first, but he was a terrible joke. But sure enough, he pretty sure I was the last person he talked to, because his wife was just going into the shower when we were talking. and she could hear him kind of yelling, but she thought he was just looking for her. And so when she came out of the shower, he was already on the ground dead.
And he was, so how old was he? Was he 50?
First mass. So I'm 56 now. So that was 4 years ago. He's 54.
He was 54. That is another reason at this age, I do I do anything that I want to do that I can afford to do. And you know what I mean? Like if it's on my bucket list and I got the money to do it, I'm doing it. Like I do not mess around with what I want to try to either accomplish or experience or do, because now that I'm 56, I hear more and more stories like that all the time, either family members or people I know or friends of mine, or either they died or they get something, right? They got sick or something happened. And I'm always telling my wife, I'm like, man, from this point forward, anything could happen anytime.
Well, it's interesting, having my younger brother die so young. I was only 22 at the time. And then, I've lost about 30 friends in the military. And
Yeah, right.
My brother. What's so interesting is, well, I would do anything to get any one of those people back. It's just like you said, just the outlook it's given me on life is you just don't know when that last moment is. But more importantly, since all of these people, I never had a chance to fix anything or say I'm sorry or redo anything. They were just gone. So it really did change, the way I look at things. And a lot of people say, what's on my bucket list and what are all the things I want to do? What do I want people saying about me? To me, it's more like, what if someone leaves my life? I haven't contributed in a meaningful way to their life. So it's really turned things around for me. Am I really adding to other people's lives where if they're gone, I would have regrets for not, calling them or not going to see them, or not saying something to them, or not fixing something. So it's really it's changed the way I look at things for sure.
And then how about your personal life? Let's get personal. When did you, married, kids, divorced, grandkids? What's up? Give us the scoop, Todd.
So I was married. When did I get married? 1990, 95, 96. I was married for 20 years, almost my entire time in the Air Force. Well, throughout my entire time in the Air Force, except for a few years. I was married. It was funny is we traveled all over the world, had a really exciting lifetime. And we got out of the Air Force. It was kind of like, great woman, great mother, great person. We still do things every so often now, but our lives just were different. It's like we finally had to grow up, quite frankly.
Wow.
And, just have different ideas what that looked like.
Okay, very good. So how long have you been single?
2013.
That's 20. That's 20 years. You've been single for 20 years?
No, 2013, 10 years.
Oh, sorry, 10 years. You've been single for 10. That's still a long time.
Yeah, well, it's funny. I met you I think literally the year I was getting divorced.
Oh, wow.
That's when I met Mark Newell.
Right.
Together, and that's when I met you. But yeah.
Okay, now, all right, ladies. So go ahead and give your phone number, address, and everything. No. What does it suck to be single and 56? Like, is it hard? I mean, let's talk a little bit about that. Like, because here's the reason I'm asking before you answer. I have a couple of advisors on the advisory board for recruiting firm Riderflex here at the company, and a couple of them are in their 50s and they're single. And they both were like, yeah, it's cool at first, okay, yeah, let me go crazy. I'm gonna date around this and this. And then after a while, I was like, I kind of wish I had somebody now. Like that's kind of the stage they're in. Where are you at?
Neither. I mean, yeah, when I first got divorced, I was a kid in the candy store.
Yeah. This went crazy.
Literally hadn't dated anyone in over 20 years,
Yeah.
Really since about college. So it was, but very quickly that got old very, very quickly. It also through a few mistakes, like, oh my God, I didn't know people.
Yes, right.
Yeah, I've had 3 really good relationships, unfortunately, 2 of them ended up with the person not quite being the person I expected them to be, with a lot of lying and cheating going. But one in the middle was absolutely wonderful. We talked about getting married. It just wasn't it was like we broke up for all the right reasons, is what we say. Everything was there, but we just our lifestyles were just different enough that we felt that somewhere down the line, one of us is not going to be really happy. So for me, it's been different. It's just seeing friends go through good and bad relationships. There's worse things than being alone.
Although alone during the holidays is tough, kind of, right? Isn't it?
Great
No,
group of friends, so one of my friends from Idaho Springs, and what's funny is like, several of the women I've dated, we dated like maybe a hot month. We remained very, very good friends.
gotcha.
I've got one, two, probably four of my best friends are women that I dated, and
Okay.
they've got friends, and one's even married now, but we still kind of hang out every once in a while because we just valued each other. The relationship didn't work out. So I
No,
think
do they?
we go skiing and barbecue
Okay.
in the parking lot and dance, and it's a good time.
Do they have the, is it like 55 and over, dating sites or apps or what, how does it, what are you,
I don't know. I mean, I'll go on a dating app every once in a while. Like, well, the worst thing is, I always got tickets to the play, and I've got season tickets to the DCPA, and I always want concert tickets. And I always got like two well in advance because I can't wait till the last second. So a lot of times, I'm just swiping, trying to get someone just to go to a play. I do. My cousin, my nephews both moved into town. We went to a Red Rocks concert just the other night. I had a sight unseen date, a blind date.
oh, that could be good or bad.
I hope she doesn't watch this. She looked like the lady from Something About Mary, the one down in Florida, all the tan and
Oh,
really just
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
But it was. I shouldn't make fun of her.
That's all right. I would not want to be single right now. Even on the days when my wife gets on my nerves. And by the way, my wife will watch this because she does production on the podcast. But even on those days, I still like, no, I don't know, man. I don't know. Last thing I wanted to mention there, I got a buddy. He says, man, he goes, I keep getting kicked off of these damn dating sites. I'm like, well, why? He's like, I don't know. He's like, I think I'm just being too direct. I'm just being, and then they say I'm being mean, and I'm not really being mean. I'm just telling it like it is. And then he gets kicked off. And I was like, well, then what do you do? He's like, well, then I make up a fake profile and go back on, change my name.
Yeah, might as well start a relationship on the basis of dishonesty.
Right. I mean, totally. And then you said, did you have children? You said?
Yeah, two girls. Yep, two ladies now, 27-ish, 25-ish. I can never do the reverse math. One, my oldest, Lucia, she is a nurse, a cosmetic nurse down in Savannah, Georgia. Her boyfriend's an Army guy. Go figure. But no, he just signed down to Savannah, so they're down there. And then my youngest, Sierra, she kind of out of the blue, no pun intended, chose to become an Air Force officer just a few years herself, and so she's cool. Now in Oklahoma City as a air battle manager and hopes to get a pilot training slot sometime soon.
Enid, right? No, not Enid, not Enid. Tinker. I mean Tinker. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay, very good. Well, no grandkids.
Nope, not yet. Not I know of.
By the way, on the 23andMe, when your family did that, was there? I was kind of joking around, but half joking because we did that over here, and yeah, some things came out where you're kind of looking at what's this over here? What how this kid?
My mom's been really big into genealogy, so
okay.
That's how we know our families.
I see.
American Revolution. So no, we don't have any crazy uncles.
No surprises. No surprises.
Other than the fact that we're as white as you can get. Like I said, I'm not necessarily proud of that fact, but
well, so then you decided what, right after high school? Did you go in right after high school? Or wait, did you go to college first before you went to the Air Force?
There's a little story there. So big fish, small pond growing up in Clear Creek County. I had a lot of offers for colleges, there was a huge scholarship that was roughly back then $20,000 a year, which was huge for college.
Sports, grades, both?
Both. I mean, again, I was in Idaho Springs. Yeah. I say that with complete humility. I really do, because if I'd been over in Evergreen, where there's 600 students a class, we were 600 students for the entire K through 12 for the county. Yeah. I just wouldn't have. I don't think I would have, done as well as I did. And, it just so happens in Idaho Springs, we had a great group of friends. We participated in drama and football and all this. We could be in every single sport. We do student council and drama and everything else. And so on paper, to the Air Force, I mean, in colleges, that looks great.
That's cool.
A lot of people didn't have that opportunity. So anyway, I had a lot of opportunities to go to different schools. I was accepted at a lot of different schools, including all the military academies. And then I decided, you know what? Fuck it, I'm not going to go to college. I'm going to join the Peace Corps. I turned everything down.
Really?
Yeah, I was a little rebellious age back then. Uh, I contacted the Peace Corps and I had a face-to-face meeting. And honest to God, this is what the guy said. Almost looked at me this way too. After he kind of found out I had not gone to college and I turned all the colleges down, he got really stern, put his pencil down, leaned forward, and said, "Young man, you need an education."
Okay. It's so you didn't go.
Oh, I didn't realize how competitive it is to get in the Peace Corps. It's very, very difficult to get in the Peace Corps.
I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah, I began I mean, a lot of my high school teachers, was a bunch of potheads, not potheads, up at Idaho Springs. They were all in the Peace Corps. Like, well, they can do it, I can do it.
I see. Yeah.
But it's changed over the years to be very, very competitive. It's really hard getting the Peace Corps.
So the Peace Corps turns you down, but you get into the U.S. to the Air Force Academy.
Well, then I had to go back and kind of, beg, borrow, and steal to see which colleges are going to accept me back in. I turned them down, and I'd been recruited to play football at the Air Force Academy, and it was close to skiing. It's funny, I had no desire to become a pilot. It was like, it's free and close to skiing. That was the end of my decision making for the Air Force.
Okay. Very good. And did you play football all 4 years, or?
No, I played the first year. It just changed for me. It wasn't as fun as it was. And then back then, Fisher DeBerry was our head coach, and remember I went skiing one weekend after the end of football season, and all the rest of the team was in working out. And I got called in the coach's office, and it was, "Cadet Lancaster, we noticed we're not in the gym this weekend, and we do expect football to be all year round for you." And I was like,
Yeah.
"Sir, I think we're going to have a problem."
Yeah.
For me, when ski season starts.
So many people have told me that played Division I or Division II sports, they'll say, when you go to college, your sport is year round, full time. Like, you really don't have any other kind of life. So yeah, it's just completely different mindset. Yeah.
Yeah. So I played my first year, and then it was just like, I'm not into it. I'm not going to be good enough to ever do anything with it. And most likely I'll just get hurt doing this. So it was just a choice just not to do it and go do some other things instead.
And did you know that you wanted to make the Air Force a career? Did you know you were going to stay in that long? What was the plan?
No, I really didn't. Like I said, I didn't have any desire to fly. I didn't have my pilot qualifications. As a matter of fact, even when I graduated, they asked me if I wanted to go, because I had allergies really bad. And back then, they were very, very selective about, anything wrong with you, because they had so many people, they would just say, "Nope, you're not a pilot." So they asked me if I wanted to get a waiver for my allergies, so I had to go through some testing. So about a month or two after I graduated the academy, I got my pilot qualification. So then I went to pilot training. So I keep saying my life is a big series of really good mistakes. I had no real desire to fly or stay in the Air Force, but they sent me to, when I got my pilot qualification, I want to go fly helicopters. And in the Air Force, that's like, what? You're an Air Force pilot. You're supposed to go fly jets. And I said, no, helicopters sound pretty cool. But the deadline for the helicopter school had passed. So I'm one of the pilots that had to go fly jets. So
really? Okay.
Grudgingly, I went flew jets for 5 years before I went back to helicopters.
And any engagements, any overseas tours, and any of the wars that happened between? Yeah.
Yeah. So the first 5 years I was an instructor pilot, and it was when the first Top Gun came out, and I used this in my leadership coaching quite a bit. Just the lessons in humility. And I hate to admit it. You look at pictures of me. I was Tom Cruise. I had the sunglasses.
You were the guy. You were that guy.
And but I wasn't happy. I was projecting this image of what we were supposed to be like, but it just didn't feel good to me inside. So about 5 years in, the Cold War just ended, so they're letting pilots out right and left. So I could have gotten it. But at that point, my ego was so tied to being a jet pilot that I didn't know. I didn't really know how to identify myself outside that. So it was really a struggling time, and I always say this is the best decision I ever made in my career, was because we let so many pilots out. All of a sudden, our special operations forces, you always have to do one assignment before you can go to special operations. So they want you to have some experience.
Right.
Well, we mismanaged our special operations helicopters force. So all of a sudden they said, we need 15 pilots right now. And they were allowing fixed wing pilots, jet pilots like me, to volunteer to go over and fly. So I was one of the first people. I said, sign me up. And I got counseled up and down chain of command saying, "What are you doing? You want to go fly helicopters?" And like, I mean, you don't get a leather jacket or anything else. I'm like, yeah, I want to go fly. My dad even told me my career was done. I would never.
Really?
I did it. Best choice ever made.
Really? That's fantastic. And then what year was that? So that was
That would have been 94 when I transferred over to special ops.
so the Gulf War was already over. What was going on? I can't remember what was going on.
So what's here? So you talk about combat. We had one of the longest training programs in the Air Force in special operations helicopters. It's a huge helicopter. It's right behind me here. It's MH-53, weighed about 50,000 pounds. I had 55 people in the back of it once. Just to give you an idea. Our primary job now, unclassified, was SEAL Team 6 and Delta Force, and then all the other
Dropping these guys off, dropping them off, picking them up.
It's our primary job: infiltration, exfiltration into denied areas. But we also had a secondary mission of combat search and rescue. And so it was during the Bosnian and Serbian campaigns, bombing campaigns. 2 French pilots were shot down outside the Serbian capital of Pale. And for about a week or so, we were sitting alert. We couldn't figure out if they were captured, if they were evading. We started to get signs that these pilots were evading.
Mm.
So we went in. We had to go into Serbia. In the middle of the night, 2 o'clock in the morning, in the low level with 2 helicopters. We had all the fighters and gunships stacked above us to help us. We needed help. Got into the site and didn't see anything except this one flashing strobe light. And it was only flashing on our goggles. We took off our goggles, we couldn't see it. So that indicates it's an infrared light.
I see.
So, but we were out of gas at that point. We had to head home. So we go all the way back, and then we decide, okay, do we think that was the French pilots? And then do we go back in? So we did everything we were not supposed to do. Went back in exactly the next night, flew exactly the same route at exactly the same time. And it was basically a trap. We got lit up. And we got lit up in the landing zone, and we eventually took 6 hits, and 2 people were shot in the back, and we had to get out of Bosnia, get out of Serbia quickly.
Are these? Can I just visualize this? And gosh, we could do a whole episode just on your military career.
Yeah, some of the stories I'll tell you will even be true.
Yeah. I mean, this is good stuff. Are you talking? You're in air. I'm trying to visualize. You're flying the helicopter. There's guys in the back. Bullets are flying through the air, hitting the helicopter. Killed 2 guys in the back. Or were you on the ground?
Didn't kill them. I wounded them. Yeah.
Wow. All right. Is your glass? Is the glass bulletproof where you're sitting?
No.
Oh.
Pilots, there's a titanium tub, if you will, down around us, so that you can't get shots. But now the glasses, they can shoot right there. Some friends of mine in Iraq took an RPG to the front of the helicopter. The front of the helicopter fell off, basically. No one died. They landed the helicopter. The throttles were gone. They had to shut the engines down by pulling a cord, by pulling the cables. Those things were incredibly survivable. I mean,
do you have nightmares or anything now? Are you still affected in any way through anything you went through?
That I used to, not really nightmares. It was always the what if, like when we were in that landing zone, this was just chaos for the first minute or so, because people yelling, we're trying to find a way out because we're getting shot at from all directions. I remember I'm in the left seat, I'm looking out, and I can see the tracers getting closer to us. And so I'm yelling at the pilot, brake right, brake right, brake right. Someone in the back is yelling, they're seeing something else. They're saying brake left. And I mean, I don't know how close they were, but the last second, the pilot, I don't know if by the grace of God or he finally heard me, broke right. And as we're turning, I can see the tracers going over the top of us. It's meant that it would hit us. So it's always like those what ifs, what if just like 2 more seconds, I wouldn't have had my daughter, or I would, who knows, so that's what really, it wasn't so much the experience itself. It was all the what ifs, how close were we,
Right. So you stayed in for how many years total?
4 years Air Force Academy and 22 years after that. So,
and then what happened when you woke up one day and said, I'm done, I'm out, see ya?
More or less. I mean, so I do want to mention one of the coolest jobs I had is towards the end of my career in Afghanistan. The Afghans were crashing their helicopters faster than we could supply them, and then we didn't have any advisors flying with them. So Canadian, a Navy pilot, a Czech pilot, and a Hungarian pilot, we all went to Ukraine and learned how to fly. I learned how to fly Russian helicopters in Ukraine for 6 months. And
cool.
and went down to Afghanistan. I flew with the Afghans. We flew with the Afghans, for a year, trying to rebuild their Air Corps and help them learn how to fly better. So
Really?
unfortunately,
I bet you have some thoughts on us pulling out of Afghanistan after a 20-year investment.
and I will say that I'm not going to argue whether we should have or should not have. Okay, the conversation can go either way there, but we
Okay.
definitely should not have done it the way we did it.
Mm.
Anyone who argues differently, I don't know how you can.
You don't want to, but you don't want to go on record of saying whether we should or shouldn't have.
Well, I think that that's not the question. Is did our strategy match our long-term goal? So very quickly, back in 2008, when I was there, we were making it very clear. It's like we need to do one of two things. Either we just have to accept we're going to be here indefinitely, like we are in Korea, and
Right.
then plan our training and stuff around that, or we need to change our training process because they are not capable of sustaining themselves anywhere near in the near future. And we did the worst of both things, and we kind of did both.
I got you. Yeah.
So,
I got you.
so our strategy should have changed a lot earlier to be able to support the decision we made. And once you made the decision, again, you don't pull the military out first. You collapse everything, and then you bring your embassy up to Kabul, or not up to the Bagram Air Base. Okay, and then you leave.
I want to ask you another military question, then we'll move into the superintendent stuff, which was, I think, next in your career. But I want to ask you one more thing while we're on this topic. And this question we could talk a full hour on, but maybe you can give me your kind of just short version answer. Are you, as a former career military guy, are you nervous right now with China, Russia? Should we be nervous? Are you like, it is what it always is? Like, just what are your general thoughts? I'm just curious.
Yeah. So what I think is interesting is there is no rival competitor to us economically or militarily. Simply, okay. People say that they outnumber us in the Pacific, but we can make adjustments. We got tons of allies, so I'm not worried about that. What I'm concerned about is there was a term when the Roman Empire was around for 1,000 years as Pax Romana, Pax Romana, peace in the empire, because the Roman military was so strong. Okay, so if you're in the Roman Empire, that was really a relatively long period of peace. When we look at there's been a term out there called Pax Americana, that since World War II, when the Americans really came on the scenes, the wars have gone down, the amount of killings have gone down, tragedies in war have gone down, economies have gone up, the entire what would you say, human condition has increased. Okay, life expectancy has doubled almost in the last 100 years.
Yes.
And so there's this big period of Pax Americana because people believe that American can keep the peace. If people start to lose that belief, then it's like, okay, well, why don't we go partner with China then? Or why don't we go partner with Russia? I mean, India already thinks that Russia's completely okay being in Ukraine. They see their partners as Russia and China. Not the United States.
And what about Russia and China being buddies and teaming up? Is that a big deal? Nah. Okay.
Well, Russia made a huge strategic error. They show exactly how inept they are. I mean, they've got their equipment is basically as capable as ours, but they just don't have the strategy.
Okay.
People lose faith in America's ability to lead and to maintain the peace. I think then we're in big trouble.
It is interesting you bring up that topic. How do you say it? Pax, what do you say?
Pax Americana.
Pax Americana. It's interesting you bring that up because I was thinking about this the other day. Since the Depression and World War II, it's not quite 100 years yet, but it won't be long. And there's so many gaps in the generations that have happened since then that especially the Gen Z and some of the millennials, they're so far removed from any kind of hardship or anything. Like they can't even grasp it, right? Like they're so far removed from it that they're living in this not fake world, but this utopia that they think is just going to last forever just because. And I think about that quite often. And when I was on the treadmill this morning, in fact, I did a post about this today. I was on the treadmill this morning and I usually pull up something on YouTube, and this History Channel Daniel Boone thing popped up, and I was like, okay, I'll watch this for 30 minutes while I'm on the treadmill. And just the shit he went through to establish colonies in Kentucky, and the American Revolution was going on at that time. So the revolution's, the British are coming in from this side. He's fighting the natives trying to settle the territory, and he's doing all this stuff. And I'm on the treadmill. I'm thinking, man, the young people of today have no fucking clue what some of these people have gone through in this country. Anyway, I'm just ranting. Sorry.
Yeah, no. Well, I think every generation eventually faces its challenges. We were saying about, probably my generation, and then all of a sudden, 9/11 hits, and now we've got, then you have COVID. I'm sorry, that is something that's difficult for people.
Yeah, it was difficult. Yeah, yeah. And maybe the Gen Zs, what they're going to have to face? They're going to have to face AI and robots. They're going to have to fight the robots. That's what they're going to have to fight.
I think they're going to have to deal with an incredibly complex economic situation.
Yes. Yes. No doubt. I heard Elon Musk say the other day, kind of half jokingly, but I think he's kind of serious. He's like, eventually there'll have to be some sort of universal pay, because so much technology will take over so many jobs that you'll have to do something with society, and there's going to be a major problem there. We could do a whole nother episode on that too.
I'm going to grab a drink real quick before we go to the next topic.
Go ahead. Yep. Okay, folks, we're back. So those topics, you're gonna have to come back on the show, because we could do like hours on each one of those. How in the world did you decide when you get out of the Air Force? I'm looking at your LinkedIn. I'm like, okay, superintendent of schools. How'd that even happen, Todd? What happened?
So I knew, even when I was younger, that when I got out of the Air Force, I wanted to get an education. So I have a master's education. I was working on doctorate in education. Even inside the Air Force, even though I was operational, I always strove for the instructor jobs. As a platform instructor teaching flying, as instructor and evaluator, taught leadership at the Marine Corps University at a senior level. So I was always seeking out, pursuing education jobs to prepare me for when I got out. And what's interesting is I made colonel early, a couple of years early, which means
very nice,
higher leadership. And colonel is the one rank that you have to stay in it for 3 years in order to retire in that rank.
I see.
You don't stay in 3 years and retire as a lieutenant colonel.
Okay.
So I had just pinned on colonel. And
nice. Congrats.
Now you're in for the long haul of 5-6 years, see if you make general and all that stuff, And I was excited about that, but at the same time, wasn't looking forward to those 5 or 6 years.
Okay.
And then literally like 2 months after I pinned on, the Pentagon came out with a force shaping policy that needed to get rid of senior officers. So they basically said any colonel can get out at any time and maintain their rank. And so I literally, my wife was visiting Colorado, which her mom and dad then. And I called her up at 2 o'clock in the morning. I couldn't sleep. I said, I'm out. I'm going to get out.
Nice.
Went to my jackass boss the next day, told him that I'm doing this. He says, I haven't given you approval. I said, I don't need your approval. And so it was an overnight decision, but because I had kind of prepped myself, for education, and I ran a special operations schoolhouse, and then I also ran Afghanistan. We're responsible for developing their training programs. So I was looking at principal jobs in Colorado, and in Colorado, in order to get your principal certificate, you have to have taught for at least 2 years in the K-12 system.
Okay.
But couldn't do that. So I started looking at charter schools, broadening my expanse or search. I started seeing these jobs for superintendent. So I looked at what a superintendent did. What would qualifications a superintendent have? None. 0 qualifications. So I figured that'll start from the top.
God.
I started applying superintendent jobs. So my first job was down in the South Carolina School District. A challenged district down in the South, and so I got hired down there. Loved my work. Loved being a superintendent. And as I make these comments,
the parents too. You love the parents too. Come on now.
There's definitely challenges. But I like that. And I mean no disrespect towards the people in the education system, the teachers at all. But the system, I've never seen a system so pitted against itself as education. And that's what got frustrating is everywhere you looked, it was just another systemic issue that,
Mm.
you pull this, you change this variable and this variable changes. And it's once again, not talking about the individuals, it's a very low trust system. Okay.
Really?
I've done a lot of consulting and coaching in higher education systems, community colleges, and tech schools and stuff afterwards. And yeah, very, very low trust system.
How about that?
In general, I mean, there are examples of high trust, but for the most part, very low trust systems.
How would you like to be doing it in today's world where, because you did that last in 2014, I think, correct me if I'm wrong. What if you were doing it today, Todd, and you went into the office and they want to have a meeting about, are they a girl? Are they a boy? And are they cats? And then all this other stuff that's going on. I mean, what if you were involved today? You'd probably just be like, okay, yeah, I can't do this.
Well, that's what I'm saying. It's the conversation we're having are so far removed from what we need to do to really educate. And so that makes it difficult to protect the teachers, and let them just do their job.
Mhm.
It also makes it very difficult to get the systems in place and the consistency and quality in place to help the students, because you're constantly chasing all these different issues. And let's take a simple. I mean, when I was superintendent in Idaho Springs, it was a landmark case for transgender students here in Colorado. Colorado had one of the first cases
Okay.
where I'm probably not going to use the terms correctly, but my intent is good here, where a young boy identified as a girl
And wanted to compete against girls.
No, this is this back then. It's like a middle school, elementary. It's had nothing to do with sports. This is
Okay.
bathroom,
Bathroom. I see.
because this was the court case, and this young, we'll say young lady, okay, in respect to her choices, this young lady, eventually the court said, yes, you have to provide a bathroom for this child, and it can't be
Their own bathroom, like a private bathroom.
That's what we kind of want. Can't be the girls' bathroom, can't be the boys' bathroom.
I see.
Yeah,
All right. Okay.
And so I just out of curiosity, in our tiny little district up in Clear Creek, I'm like, I'm just curious, do we have a child like this that we need to be aware of, now that this court case has come through? And sure enough, we did. We had a young boy that identified as a girl in, I think, 5th grade or 6th grade or something. I asked, I'd like to go down and observe. Don't tell me who this child is, since I just want to go observe. And I spent the morning observing this class. And at the end, I went up and said, okay, I think it's this young lady. I said, nope, I guessed wrong twice before they told me who it was.
Interesting.
That convinced me at that point that these children are truly born that way, and they identify.
Interesting.
Okay. It was not a political thing. The parents were not making it happen or anything. That child was a girl. Was a girl.
Interesting.
And so it really has changed my mindset around all of that.
Okay.
Interesting. The point of this conversation, though, is now we have to find a bathroom. So they make these rules and laws, and then they give you no money
Oh,
rectify it.
yeah.
So it's like, okay, well, what do we do now? How do we manage this? And eventually we just said, well, what we'll do is we'll have a teacher's, bathroom. We'll just put student or teacher on it, so that, anytime a teacher was inside, it would say teacher. And then once they were done, they'd flip it back over to go to
I see.
Student could use it if she wanted.
I see. And then, so you spent several years in the school system there, and then why'd you make the move into professional coaching, and eventually into Vistage? Like, how did that kind of happen for you?
So, John Barry, he was the superintendent of Aurora Public Schools, and he was a Air Force retired Major General. He was kind of like a mentor to me when I first came in,
Okay.
And then he and I chatted, and he was getting out of education about the same time I was, and for about some of the same reasons. It's just the amount of effort it takes to get even some progress is tremendous. And he told me, he goes, you probably do more good outside the system than inside the system. And so I happened to be actually the lady that I was dating when you and I met. She was an executive coach. Okay. And so the two of them kind of convinced me I should go out and start working outside the system in terms of developing leadership. So that's how I became an executive coach and eventually like a leadership consultant that I've been doing now for.
And you worked for Franklin Covey for several years, right? I believe.
Several companies, yeah. So I was an independent contractor. Franklin Covey was my main contractor.
All right.
Afterburner. It's all ex Air Force pilots and special operations people, and
Ah,
very similar work. It's strategy and execution and leadership development. And there's a few other companies like Resnick Partners here in Denver I coached with. So I coached with a variety of companies, but basically always doing the same thing: senior level executive coaching, systems process coaching.
okay. And then how did you get hooked up with Vistage? And Vistage Worldwide been around for a long time, right? I think. And how'd that connection happen for you, and why did you join them?
Couple things. It's interesting you and I are having this conversation because years ago when I was working a lot in Denver, I had a lot of professional connections, and so like Mark, invite me to the Christmas party and everything else.
Mm-hmm.
I'd go to a lot of those things. And then, for the couple years prior to COVID, I was traveling almost every week, with all these different jobs, constantly.
Okay.
I loved it. Then COVID hits, and a couple years of that. And then it was last Christmas, several things were coming together at the same time. One, I was kind of getting sick of traveling.
Yes.
Just,
Yeah.
I mean, how do I describe it once again is because I was being asked, I didn't find the work. I had to just go do the work is some of the policies is getting too difficult. I mean, the sensitivities and stuff that are out there.
Can't say anything. Can't say anything. It might hurt somebody's feelings.
Exactly.
We could do a whole show on that, my friend. We got to come back. Go ahead.
So again, several things are coming together around fall, and I will use one example because it's the flip side of what I just talked about with that young girl in our school. Changed my mind about that, and in a very good and positive way. So I am in complete support, of children and people that identify as different sexes because I saw it, I witnessed it firsthand. But at the same time, I was working with an executive group, and we're trying to build trust. And at the very start of the day, what I do is, and we use very, very specific terms to say, what behaviors do we need? What 3 behaviors are we going to focus on today to really help build
This
trust?
is a client like this. You're talking to executives at a company or something like that.
Executive team at a university.
Right.
Even though I do work inside corporate and nonprofit and everything else, this is inside the university. And so the group came up with 3 very specific behaviors. It was demonstrate respect, listen first, and talk straight. Said, great. Okay, so what we're going to do is make sure that we're practicing things and we don't see them. Let's make sure we call it out. Well, one lady just sits back and folds her arms. I don't agree with those behaviors. I was really
what do you suggest? What do you suggest?
Well, I was trying to understand, and so even though the conversations, you probably gonna sense my frustration. I was asking questions about what do we mean? What are you talking about? She goes, I just don't agree with those behaviors. I said, well, which, like all of them or one of them? She goes, well, talk straight. I don't think we should have to talk straight. I'm like, well, how are we going to? So I'm asking questions.
What fake talk? We're going to like side talk, fake talk. What do you mean?
and then she goes, why do I live in a straight world? And go back to like those World War II movies where the platoon all of a sudden finds themselves in the middle of the minefield. Like, oh, like
she was tying the word straight into a sexual preference thing. Like that's not what the definition. That's not how you used the word.
The room just explodes now. The whole team is arguing back and forth, and
wow.
Even this one gay gentleman who was in the crowd, he was so funny. He goes, "Oh, what? I can't walk in a straight line anymore." I lost complete control. It took me literally 30 minutes to get them to calm down again, and we substituted a word for it. That was fine. But oh my gosh!
Hold on. For that meeting to continue, you had to substitute a word for. Okay, yeah, I would have been. Yeah, I would have. I
was fine with that, but it was more, of course, you always get reviews and stuff. And I did 160 deliveries that year, and this was 1 out of 100. So I only had 4 that were less than a 9 or a 10.
Okay.
And this
bad review.
This one came back really bad, and I was chastised for not being sensitive enough. Like, what? This had nothing to do with me. It had to do with someone making a political statement
That's wild.
inside the room, and we worked through it using the content. But the fact that I had to defend myself. And the last one, the final straw, and I don't know what you'll edit out here, put in is with another company out in California, a sports company, and it was about, I think, 18 women and 2 men, roughly 30 years old and stuff. And this is the first time they'd been back together since COVID.
Okay.
And so same thing. I was working on building trust, but this group is being just a little bit, ornery. And I couldn't get them back in seats on time. They're talking over each other. So there's a couple times I had to, be pretty heavy-handed.
Like, hey guys, you're paying for this shit, so pay attention.
So that's my job, is deliver. So my client partner is there with me who managed it. And she at the end she goes, "Hey, Todd, you did a great job. I love using you. You know, you're always so good with the clients. Even this one was unruly." But once again, we got really bad reviews.
Okay.
So my managing consultant, I've got to go defend myself now, and which is stupid. I was like, okay, why don't we just have a conversation about what happened as opposed to me feeling I'm defensive. But my client partner wanted to support me, so she hopped on too. And we're working through this, and my management consultant keeps asking, "What can you learn from this? What can you learn from this?" I'm like, "Well, quite frankly, not a lot." I mean, they just wanted to have a good time. They weren't there to really learn, and my job is to teach, and that's what I'm supposed to do. And
Mm.
sometimes it just doesn't go well. And she kept saying, "Well, I'm just not hearing you own this." And my client partner finally jumps in at the very end. She goes, "Well, I did talk to the chief of HR afterwards, and the chief of HR says, yeah, this group has difficulty with white alpha males." This is
Oh,
what my black female managing consultant says.
wow.
We've had that complaint about Todd before.
Well, you've lost before you even start talking. You lose as soon as you walk into the room.
Couldn't believe that a black female is making me defend myself. And what am I going to learn about this comment about being white alpha male? I'm like, you are allowing a client to make a sexist, racist remark about me. You
Wow.
should have told the client, "Hey, we
Wow.
don't appreciate that. Our
Wow.
consultant." Okay,
Wow.
you should. I mean, I couldn't believe that. I had to defend
You
myself.
were,
That was the final straw. I was like, I'm done.
yeah, I'm done.
Yeah. So anyway, back to the Christmas parties. So I was thinking about that, and what am I going to do? I don't want to travel as much, and then I wasn't invited to a single Christmas corporate this year. I'm like, I have no network in Colorado anymore, and I don't want to do work with this. I don't want to keep traveling. It's fine. I'm going to go into business for my own, and that's how I got connected to Vistage.
Because Vistage it's not like you're not buying a franchise, are you? Or how does it work? Do you mind telling us how does the business model work?
Yeah, Vistage does a training. I'll tell you, their training for their chairs is outstanding.
Okay.
I thought it was gonna be very transactional. Here's how you go do cold calls and things like that.
Yeah.
No, and I've been through a ton of training.
Yeah.
This is one of the best. It really was. It prepares us very, very well to keep peeling the layers back of leadership.
But do you own like a chapter or a region or what?
They provide the process. They provide the process and all the admin, if you will,
Okay.
for me to develop my own chair practice.
Anywhere you want.
Well, yes. Well, it's usually localized, but yeah, if I move to Houston, I can do it in Houston.
I see. But you can't. What if you have a buddy that wants to be part of it that lives in Florida? That doesn't work that way.
People want to fly up here. We do. We've got people like
I see.
my group right now. One gentleman flies in from. We'll be flying in from Houston. His company's here in Denver, but he lives in Houston.
Okay.
We've got another. It's one of my peer groups. It meets here in Denver, but the gentleman was in for a long time. He lives in Montrose, and every month he flies out to be a part of the group.
I want to ask you a couple more questions. I know we're over time. Do you have just 5 more minutes, or do you got a bump?
Got plenty of time.
Okay. Do you have to, for the listener, did you have to pay an initial fee to be a chair, or how did that work to get the chair?
Yeah, you put up money for their academy, but you get that back once your group starts.
Okay. And then as the group members pay you, they get their fee, they get a piece, you get a piece, basic transaction. Yeah. I see.
The groups, I'm trying to build a group about 16 to 20. I've got 6 right now.
6. All right. And how many meetings a year?
It's once a month. Once a month.
12 meetings a year. Okay.
Yeah, Vistage provides outstanding. So what we usually do is the morning is usually a guest speaker, but it's not just a sit and get. They'll have outcomes from it. We'll work together in small groups, to really apply the concepts.
Okay.
Then the afternoon is issue processing. Did you watch Ted Lasso?
Nope.
Gosh, okay, you got to watch that.
All right.
As a person involved with leadership, it is a really a very good leadership.
Okay. All right.
But he's got those groups called the Diamond Dogs. Whenever someone's got a problem, someone just starts barking like, oh, and the dogs, all the coaches come together and they help this person solve their problem.
Okay.
And this is why it was also good for me to move over to Vistage from what I was doing. I've been doing a lot of individual executive coaching, and that's great. And I like that. It's wonderful for personal growth. But I felt it was somewhat limited when it comes to helping that person address their business issues. Because we don't know that person's business as
I
well as
see.
that person does. And I
I
can
see.
only, and so
Hmm.
back to this diamond dog concept is what the power of Vistage is, bringing these CEOs together, 16 to 20 CEOs together. So when
Okay.
Steve says, you know what, I'm having this personnel issue. This person's
Mm.
really, really good technically, but they just have a toxic personality, like I mean, how do I work through this? And so then the Diamond Dogs, the Vistage group helps them process that issue.
Okay.
So and then there's actions that come out, and then what we do in between the meetings is I provide a 90-minute to 2-hour executive coaching session.
I
So,
see.
so let's say we work through your issue. This person that's, again, very good technical skill, doing wonderful job that way, but just a toxic personality.
Hmm.
You say, okay, here's what I'm going to do, and then I would meet with you, 3 weeks later, say, all right, Steve, what's happened, what's transpired since our issue processing, what have you followed up on? And that's the
Okay.
accountability.
I see. I see. I have a couple of questions. So so I interview lots of entrepreneurs and business owners on the podcast, and I deal with lots of founders and CEOs as a recruiting firm CEO, right? So I see them on both sides. A lot of the podcast guests and a lot of our clients as a recruiting firm are small to medium-sized business owners, right? Or entrepreneurs, many of which do not have an extra 10, 15 grand, whatever it is a year to just toss out there for this group. And I know almost every single, well, maybe not everybody, but most people would benefit from it. It's harder for a smaller startup CEO to tell his team of 8 people, like, hey, by the way, pull this money out and pay for my membership over here so I can visit with Todd and his friends. What's your answer to that?
Well, one is there's different levels. Okay,
Okay.
so I'm working at the CEO level, but there is a small business level too that brings the cost down for the small business owner.
Oh, I see.
I'm not exactly sure what that is, but you also start to lose some of the executive coaching along the way.
Okay.
I focus on companies anywhere from about 5 to 200 million. But what's really more important to me is how do they make their decisions.
Okay.
Less about their revenue or their EBITDA, but how do they make their decisions?
All right.
Most likely they're going to have a group of people working for them, so it's decentralized. They may have a board they have to answer to. So those are the
Okay.
people I'm looking
I
for.
see. And those groups can usually afford that fee. I got you.
Yeah. But when you get to the cost, though, and this is where I'll sound a little bit like an infomercial, but sorry about that.
That's right.
Harvard has backed this up, okay, as well as Dun and Bradstreet. Executive peer groups, okay, people that are parts of executive peer groups outperform their peers
I
by
believe it.
2 to 3%.
I
Doesn't
believe it.
sound like a lot. Okay,
Yep.
but during the COVID, they outperformed their peers by 8%. That's
I believe
huge.
it. Yeah.
Okay, so even
Yep.
like a 3% return every year on something, 3 to 5% return is a good return. And so
That's
if you're
good.
$100 million, that's an extra $3 million, your $20,000 investment already paid for itself.
That's good. That's good. I appreciate you sharing that. Yeah, the peer group thing, so before I started Riderflex, you probably know this. I ran a couple of $40 million CPG companies as a CEO and president. And as I look back on my career and I have those reflective moments, I will say that being a CEO is a very lonely job, number one. And even your spouse really can't understand. So there are many, many nights where you need somebody to talk to, but you can't call your leadership team because you can't tell them certain things. You can't talk, even if you talk to your spouse, they have no idea what you're talking about, or they can't really relate to it. So you're kind of stuck there by yourself, which could lead to more alcohol consumption that you should have, or whatever other vice you have. So I believe fully that the peer group thing is a benefit because it allows them to talk to somebody else that can relate, that has been there and done that or seen that or gone through that. So I'm a big believer in that for sure.
That's the power. And that's why I said I saw myself somewhat limited as an individual executive coach. And as I started to see more and more of the peer group coaching, it's like that's pretty powerful. And that a lot of leaders kind of poo-poo that executive isolation, or they don't recognize they're isolated, like you're saying.
Oh, they're isolated. They're isolated.
I've got my leadership team I could talk to. It's like you're not
Yeah.
help with your leadership team as you are in this group over here.
You can't
So
be.
it allows, has thought partners, allows you to look at things through different perspectives, bounce some ideas off.
Yes.
And completely complete openness, complete openness and confidentiality. And that's really the power of it. And you mentioned some of the personal stuff. Is one thing I do with my groups is we do every so often do happy hours, bring the spouses in. We do a retreat with the spouses. So
Okay.
the spouses can get to know each other and have their support group too. Because I
That's
remember,
cool. That's cool.
commander in the Air Force, we had our informal, executive groups. Commanders all get together. We kind of, so this is, but the spouses also got together too, so they could support each other as they went through, the same, really the same trials and tribulations we did as leaders. And so there is that aspect of it as well, because a lot of people say, well, what's the difference between personal coaching and executive coaching? I said, neither, not much. Executive coaching really is about getting results in the professional world. But I will say 75% of my executive coaching turns towards personal issues. They're bringing their childhood to work. They're bringing the way they deal with relationships to work. They're bringing their relationship to work and stuff. So it really is a nice way that I say, we always focus on principles first. Let's really identify our principles and values. Let's have the humility as a group, okay, to recognize when we're not making our decisions based on principles and values or adhering to them. Let's have the courage to help each other out and live by those principles.
Can you talk straight, so to speak, not to bring it back to that, but can you say what you want without, oh, sorry, Johnny, I didn't mean to hurt your feelings?
Yeah, absolutely. And I say, like this came out of the special operations. We always had a phrase, we're debriefing. We're trying to learn. We need to create an environment of respectful truth over artificial harmony.
Respectful truth. I like that.
Artificial harmony is going to get you to good. Okay. Respectful truth gets you to great.
Oh, that's good. That's a lot. Oh, hey, we're going to wrap it up on that line right there, my friend. By the way, if people want to get a hold of you to talk to you, or they have interest in your group, what's the best form of communication you want to share?
LinkedIn's obviously easy. Okay. I'll give you my easy email, todd.lancaster, todd.lancaster, LANCASTER @MikeEcho.com. And feel free to just reach out, 719-322-4336.
And it is Todd Burt Lancaster. If you're trying to look him up on LinkedIn, and he'll pop up easier if you put it in that way. Vistage Chair Executive Coach is the current activity on LinkedIn as well. I could talk to you for several more hours, but we'll let you go on this episode. Then I'll have you back soon. Todd, thanks a lot for being on the show. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Leslie. Appreciate it. Thanks.